We must also consider then the extent to which money was wasted on a commission which actually did work, which it knew was not correct.
Judge Seriti should also be held accountable. It must be investigated why he did not use the testimonies as the court now found, and he must also be held accountable for part of the cost of this commission.
Those comments speaking to that sentiment by Judge Seriti that he stands by his findings. What do you think of that, Thami?
I think it's unfortunate. The retired judge, he possibly is wanting to maintain his peace of mind, but I think it's quite unfortunate that he would make such comments. I think you don't undermine a process like that when in fact there's a damning. I mean, if you read the judgment in itself and how Judge Mlambo delivered the judgment, it was quite scathing on his own person. And the integrity of the commission in itself. And it's quite unfortunate that here's a man who possibly is hell-bent on sort of sitting on top of whatever truth that he has. And I think he owes the South African public an apology, one, and I think he owes the South African public an explanation as to what exactly happened in that commission. But it's quite unfortunate. I think he has not covered himself in glory. He's shown not to be a man of integrity, and I think he lacks ethics, and I think he kind of really spits on the moral aspirations of the society, of this country. It's just very unfortunate.
Mr. Crawford-Brown, let's talk about the people who should now be answerable and perhaps paying back the money, as it were.
Well, I think we've got to look to the cabinet, the cabinet subcommittee that oversaw the acquisitions, headed by former President Thabo Mbeki, the late Joe Modise, Trevor Manuel as Minister of Finance, whose task was affordability and financing of the acquisitions, Alec Irwin, who as Minister of Trade and Industry drove this idea of 30 billion rand on warships and warplanes would bring back offsets of 110 billion to stimulate economic development. And that was absolute nonsense. So I think and the other member was the late Stella Sikau. But those four, and of course the late Joe Modise is now deceased, but the three of them really hold primary responsibility for leading South Africa into this mess. We tend to look at former President Zuma and Chippy Sheikh and Fana Shlangwana, but in fact, the buck should stop at the top, and rather than with the people who undertook the dirty work. And then also the European governments, the British, the French, the German, the Swedish, and the Italian governments that put such massive pressure on this country in violation of the EU Code of Conduct on arms exports. They knew our social circumstances at the end of apartheid, but at the end of the Cold War, many of their arms companies were facing bankruptcy, and so they put massive pressure on our government. And they should suffer the financial consequences of cancelling the contracts. The contracts, I submit, are fraudulent. There is no prescription on fraud. The internationally recognized remedy is you cancel the contracts, you return the goods, and you recover the money. But in addition, the offsets were unconstitutional in terms of Section 217 of our Constitution, which covers government procurements. Offsets must be open, transparent, and competitive and cost-effective. It met none of those criteria.
And the offsets you're talking about...
the arms deal, simply from the perspective of offsets, was unconstitutional.
And the offsets you're talking about were the jobs that were promised that were going to revive the economy, and it didn't happen.
Exactly. For instance, with the submarine contracts, the submarine tenders came last out of four in terms of military criteria, but they were selected because they promised to build a stainless steel plant at Kuka and create 16,251 jobs in Kuka outside Port Elizabeth. There was already a glut on stainless steel within South Africa and internationally. That stainless steel plant was cancelled within a matter of months. It was then replaced by a condom factory, which closed down after 3 months. The offsets never happened. The Debevoise and Plimpton report reported back that, which Judge Seriti blocked, that the frigate and submarine consortia met only 2.4% of their offset obligation, and mainly in the form of non-refundable loans. As far as the British and BAE and Saab are concerned, they met only 2.8% of their 8.7 billion, which is about 130 billion rand, $8.7 billion, about 130 billion rand, they were obligated to deliver, and which they didn't.
We're talking to Terry Crawford-Brown and Thami Nkosi about the judgment that overturned the Seriti Commission findings. Continue to stay with us. We're saying goodbye to our SABC 3 viewers for now. When we come back, join us on SABC News Channel 404 if you'd like to stay with us in this conversation.